Thanks for joining us for this panel, which is part of our Career Exploration webinar series. Today's discussion is titled Career Exploration for Girls and Women Engineering, and it focuses on the career paths and experiences of women who have professional careers in engineering. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, founding director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project and the Karen Haight Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. And I'm the host and will be the panel moderator today. Our career exploration webinars further the mission of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, which is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and USU Extension. And special thanks to our co-sponsor, the Greater Salt Lake Society of Women Engineers, and their president, Claire Dvork, for supporting us in this episode. To get us started, I would like to introduce our three panelists and ask each of them, after I introduce each of them, why they chose to focus their careers on engineering. And I'll start with Sarah Gould, who is a system development engineer at bioMérieux. She attended St. Louis University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering. She has been engaged in various internships and sororities and belongs to the Society of Women Engineers. 18 months ago, she relocated to Utah from Nashville, Tennessee. In her free time, she plays Ultimate Frisbee and engages in programs supporting diabetic children. Welcome, Sarah. Why did you choose to focus your education and your career in engineering?
I think for me, I've always really been a big fan of math, which I know can be kind of abnormal for some people, but I've been a huge math nerd. And really getting into high school, I fell in love with biology. So I was looking for a way that I could combine those things. I was looking at things like biostatistics or some kind of bioelectrical engineering. And I found out about biomedical engineering, which was a cool way to combine all of those different things I was interested in. And it's also cool because I haven't been as interested in pure design work, and it gives you the ability to not just look at models and draw a mechanical design to try to do some other things. So I liked how I could get some flexibility and some different experiences, but also do a lot of math and a lot of biology.
That's awesome. And we need more women and young women and girls to love math. And I bet all three of you appreciate that and would support that. So thank you for that response. So Becca Lynch is a senior quality manager at L3 Harris Technologies, which is a global aerospace and defense technology innovator. Becca's previous employers included Frito-Lay, Kellogg's, and Overstock.com, and she has a bachelor's degree in industrial and systems engineering from the Ohio State University and an MBA from the University of Utah. So Becca, why did you choose to focus your education and work towards a career as an engineer?
So growing up in Northeast Ohio, there were two well-known engineering paths, and that was NASA, which has a large research center there, and the automotive industry, which also has a lot of engineering jobs as well. So growing up, I had a lot of, parents of friends who said, you should be an engineer. Here's these two great paths that you could do. And so I took that encouragement because the other thing they said was, engineering jobs pay very well and are very stable. And, to an 18-year-old, the idea of having a career that, would make me good money sounded pretty exciting. But other than that, I didn't really understand all of the things that engineers can do. And when I went to college, I was fortunate that the program encouraged me to look at all different aspects of engineering. And what I figured out was that I really like figuring out how things are made. I like going through factory tours. I like understanding all the different capabilities there are to make things. And then as I got into that further, I also realized that I like problem solving and I like using data to try to figure out how to make something happen the way that I expect it to every time. And so that was how I ended up in this path of working mostly in the manufacturing realm of things, of the how stuff's made, how it gets moved through a process.
Thank you so much. I love your comments specifically on just understanding what your mind loves, what you like problem solving. You like these. Sometimes we think our talents and skills are all around, do I speak well? Do I sing well? Those kinds of things, but how our brain works and what we tend to love is so important as well. Thank you for those comments. And finally, Krista Rosen earned her Bachelor of Science in Electromechanical Engineering from Vermont Technical College. She has worked on an underwater automated vehicles, solar systems, oil field drilling tools, and in the defense industry. She is currently a quality engineering manager working for Northrop Grumman on the ground-based strategic deterrent system. She has lived in many places, including living in Ghana as a volunteer math teacher. So you like math as well. So why did you choose to focus your education and career on engineering?
Yeah, great question. My parents got me into it, and they were like, hey, you love math. You're great at math and science. Engineering is something you should do. So I went with that career path. And in my junior year of college, I had a little like crisis where I was like, wait, is this what I want to be doing? Hold on, no. And I was like, it's okay. I'll just finish my degree and I'll do whatever I want. And whatever I wanted was, I taught for a year at my alma mater, went into the Peace Corps, which is why I was in Ghana. And then when I came back, I worked at a coffee shop for a year. I had this like major, like, what am I doing with my life? And finally working at a coffee shop it was not intellectually stimulating. And I realized, no, I really need to get something that I'm more interested in. And I don't have to go work at IBM like my dad does, right? It's more like I can do whatever I want. So I applied for a bunch of different positions and I picked the one that sounded the most interesting, which was sonar systems, which were used for remote deployment fish counting in Alaska. So, I mean, for me, it was like, my parents were like, do this, do this, do this. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. I was like, no, I'm backing out. And then, I turned around and found something that I really wanted to do with my degree. And I've had a really varied background. And it's suited me really well, as it turns out.
And I had a rough time kind of reading your bio, but I love all the different, even the oil field and all the different kinds of things. So sometimes I think what you're saying, sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out exactly what you want and what stimulates you. And I would say too, I love it when I hear from women that when they get up in the morning, they get excited to think about these things. That's what they want to do, and it's stimulating. So for those listening in, you're welcome to put questions into the chat in Zoom through the presentation today, through our discussion, and our panelists will answer those as we can and have a few minutes at the end as well. So my next question is, what types of careers, you've already started, a few of you making comments, but what types of careers are available in your field? And I'm talking about the general engineering field. So let's just list a number of those. Let's have Becca, why don't you start on this one, and then we'll go to Krista and Sarah.
So one of the things that I've since, realized is that engineers are involved with every single product that you ever deal with. And what I wish I knew when I was in high school is that there's literally engineers designing your Doritos. And that was actually what a part of my job was, designing the process to make sure that your Dorito is exactly the same every time. And then also as the quality manager, my job was professional taste tester for Doritos. And that was a pretty fantastic thing to be able to, to say that I'm literally professional taste tester. So when you talk about all of the different opportunities that are out there, it's often a lot more than what you might think about, because every single product has somebody who designed it. Every single product has somebody who figured out how to manufacture it. It has somebody who is out there deploying it out there in the world for people to be able to use. Somebody needs to sell it and offer that technical support to whoever the user is. So there's a lot of different things, but also if there's a product that you're interested in, like I personally love snack foods, there's also an engineering career associated with those things too.
I love that. Sarah.
I think for me, I thought about like pure design work going into engineering, and that kind of scared me a lot when I was in college, because I was like, physics is fine, but maybe it's not my favorite, or like free body diagrams kind of scared me a lot. And so I think I actually met with some alumni who are like, no, you can go into like test engineering or integration engineering, or my favorite part of my job, which is we do our highest level of support. So like, something goes wrong in the field, they call our first level of support, they can't help them. They call like our global customer support team, they can't help them. So it's a real problem and it comes to us. We do a full formal investigation. We do the write-up for the FDA. We do the field notification on what happened to try to prevent it in the future. And I think it's really cool because I didn't think about the fact that it's like, yeah, we have a released product, but we still have to find our internal problems and solve them. And I think that is so fun.
Oh, excellent. Krista.
Yeah, I think Sarah and Becca have covered it really well, but the answer is anything. Like I said, I've worked in a bunch of different fields, and even in every field I've been in, there are so many engineers. Right now, I'm on the ground-based strategic deterrent system program where we are building a new weapon system. So we need engineers who design parts. We need engineers who test parts. We need engineers who check that the designs are good. And that's part of what my team does, right? We need people who are making sure that we're performing analyses. We need engineers who create deliverables to the government, right? There's like a lot, right? And there's different aspects of engineering. There's analysis, there's the test part. I mean, there's just a lot. And so if you're thinking like, if I'm going into engineering, I'm going to be sitting doing like CAD work, doing design work. That's not, in my experience, that's not it, right? There's a lot more.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we do get stuck in who we know. Like we know as we're growing up, a certain person that does engineering, maybe it's a civil engineer, maybe, there's many areas of engineering. So then we think, well, I don't want to do that. So each of you are saying there's so many options. So Krista, I want to stay with you and I want to give you a practical question. So for those young women in high school specifically, or maybe freshman or sophomore in college, what associates, bachelor's, and graduate degrees are available to prepare you for a field in engineering? And so, yeah, just give me some of your ideas, Krista.
Sure. Well, little known fact, I actually have an associate's degree. I got a 2+2 degree. So I got my associate's in mechanical engineering, and then I got a bachelor's in electromechanical engineering. So for me personally, the 2+2 was the way my college set it up. It's the way I got it. And that worked out really well for me. But what other degrees are there? I mean, anything ending in engineering looks great. And 2-year degrees sometimes come with engineering technology, which might get you more of a technician kind of role versus an engineer kind of role, but they're all applicable. I know, what I heard is that Becca's got an MBA, which is something I've been thinking about getting, to be honest.
Oh,
I have a master's degree. I would say that a lot of master's degrees right now, even if it's not a master's in engineering, it could be a master's in engineering management, which is something that one of my other managers on my team has. Or it could be an MBA, or it could be a master's in something like systems engineering, which is much more broad than a very specific engineering field and is very hot right now in jobs.
Thank you, Becca. I'll move over to you to talk more broadly, but I want you to add, do you really need that associates, or do you, to be an engineer, because some things you can kind of start out more broad and dive in, but it seems to me, and I don't know that much about engineering, but it seems to me that maybe you do need to shift and start taking those engineering and math and all of those classes pretty early when you get to college. Becca.
So most engineering programs have a very heavy curriculum in the science and math side of it, but they also typically have a lot of shared prerequisites too. And it really depends on what school you decide to go to, but usually you don't have to choose. If you're going for a 4-year degree, you typically don't have to choose the specific career path or the degree path until you're about a year and a half in, several semesters in is when you have to start to specialize. However, one of the things that I've learned is, statistically speaking, because I love the numbers, if you declare a major when you start, you are more likely to finish, even if you change your major. And so I knew that data going in. And so I chose a major, and I chose mechanical engineering because it was the only one I had any clue as to what it was. But then as I started the program and I learned more about different things, I had no idea what industrial engineering was when I started. But as I learned, and I learned that it has to do with the how stuff's made part of the process, I realized that was what I liked, and then I chose that major. So for anybody who's thinking about it, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do. The prerequisites are going to be pretty similar from one program to another, but it really does help you maintain your focus to choose something and start working towards that end goal, even if your path is not a straight line.
I love that. And also one other benefit, I'm in the Huntsman School of Business, and when people declare earlier, it kind of, tags the minds of people in the school, and they reach out more. They reach out and there's support, and you can get engaged in clubs earlier and all kinds of things, even if you switch your major later.
Yes,
So,
and you can still stay in most of those clubs as well. Also, when you declare a major, then you also have the resources associated with that program as well.
Yeah.
So then you end up with an academic advisor and other resources, whereas if you don't declare a major, those things just don't come to you naturally, just like you stated.
Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, I think they covered it. I think I wanted to point out something cool. One of the women that I work with, she got an associate's degree in English, which I know sounds unusual, but on our team, we do a lot of technical writing. And the fact that she's a little bit better than the rest, or a lot better than the rest of us, is honestly a huge leg up, especially for her. And like our technical writer had some health issues, so she's been out the past month. And so having people with a diverse background, especially with some writing skills, I think that's really valuable in an engineering setting. And I also kind of wanted to build a little bit off what Becca was saying, because where I went to college, if you came in and said you were interested in engineering and biology, they sent us all in on the general pre-health track to go to like potentially med school or vet school or optometry school or anything, because all the courses were the same for the first year, with the exception of like one little like intro to biomedical engineering 1-hour class. So I thought that was kind of cool because they just sent us all in and said, look, you're going to take the first year. These are going to be the really terrible classes you have to take with the pre-med kids regardless. So might as well just add the one extra class and do it. And then coming out of it, going into sophomore year, about half the kids drop that and then it whittled down after that. But a lot of people that are interested in biology want those choices. So, you don't have to keep everything you declare at the beginning either, even if it's something additional like that, or if you want to go to law school and take those credits on top or something different.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, and maybe just one of you respond, a question that's not on my list, but in Utah, we have less, even than the nation, there's significantly more men in engineering fields than women. So when you're just starting out with some of those classes, and maybe you're a sophomore, you're starting in those, and you're seeing more men in those classes. Any quick advice for women? Because I know sometimes they drop because they're not feeling a community. You all went to some different universities too. Krista, you're nodding, and do you have a quick comment about that?
Yeah, I was the only woman in my degree program for the entire time I took it. And even in the next class down, I was still the only woman. And so I was taking some of those classes and some classes here. And honestly, my answer is, number one, find allies, right? I had people who I knew would always be my lab partner. I had people who I could always count on. And honestly, it was the more diverse people, right? So we had in Vermont, it was a small college. We had one other POC in my degree program. And so he and I, we're still friends to this day. He's great. And then one of the older students I found was really helpful. I think he kind of good, like his daughter, but it was, it was kind of sweet in the moment. And so I would say find your allies and, also just be bold. You can speak up and people are going to think what they want. But you'll always have those allies who will have your back.
Do either one of you, Sarah or Becca, have any quick comment about that as well?
I would just add that remember that you always deserve to be there just as much as everyone else. Nothing about you means that you shouldn't be there. So I think that's always been really important for me to remember. Just like, even if they're making me feel like I don't deserve to be here right now, it's not true. And I think it's more of a reflection on them than of me.
And I do want to say that there is really an interest more and more that I'm seeing. There's still a lot of work to do on faculty members who are mostly men to understand gender differences, to think about how do I teach better to attract men and women, because companies want women engineers. They really want diverse, good companies, I should say, maybe not all of them, but they really want women engineers. So I think there's some good efforts to make them more family friendly. So speaking of that, Becca, I would love to have you start our next question. And that is, can you have family friendly careers in this, in engineering? And that means many different things, but a lot of people use that for people if they have children, right? But there's also elder care. There's just other life priorities. So what comments, Becca, do you have on that question?
So yes, absolutely. You can balance an engineering career and having a family. And additionally, there's a lot of different ways to think about it, including like you said, with the elder care and having different family commitments too. Some very specific career choices are more conducive to it than others. Some engineering roles will allow you to have different flexibility in what you're doing. Some of them do have more rigid schedules, or you need to be more on call. Currently in defense and aerospace, I actually have more flexibility here than I did in food and beverage, where I was sometimes on call 24/7 in case something had happened.
In case you needed to test another Frito, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes, I did sometimes get the midnight phone call that I needed to come into the plant and taste test some potato chips. That did happen sometimes.
Seriously, I was just kind of joking, but that's
No, no, that's not an exaggeration. Sometimes that happens. And I will say when that happens, it's not because they taste really delicious and somebody is very proud of it. It's usually because there's something questionable and they want to see if you can perceive it. But to go back to the topic though, it really depends, and it depends on what you need for your family. When I worked as an operations supervisor, it was very heavy on the shift work. So I had a shift that I needed to be there to lead the team. But on the other side, that meant that I was not required to support off shifts. So in order to do things like scheduled childcare, I had that type of flexibility that really supported my schedule. In my current role now, I need to be a bit more dynamic, but I also can flex my schedule as needed to be able to come in late or leave early if I need to meet commitments or appointments. And as you get into the career side of it, these are all really good questions to ask employers in terms of, what the commitment is to the work, as well as what flexibility you might be afforded as a part of your job.
Thank you. I think those kind of questions are more common these days. There's a talent shortage, and I think people are just in the decades ago, you just would not have asked those questions. So Sarah, a few thoughts from you, and then Krista.
I think for me, so I'm single. I'm only 23. I'm out living in Utah by myself. I don't really have a family to support. But I think kind of on the other end of that, when you first come into a career, it's kind of like, well, you have no life, so don't you want to work all the time? And for me, when I actually interviewed for this position, I told the manager up front, I said, look, I leave my work laptop at work on the weekends, and we only work every other Friday because we work 9-hour days. And I said, on that off Friday, like, that's important to me that I get to rest. And he totally agrees. I actually work for a French company, which I think working for them, they're more relaxed vibe. And really, I've set up those boundaries with my coworkers. If I'm on PTO, they don't bug me. I don't bug them when they're off. And so I think that's kind of setting those boundaries up front. So if I got to the point where, if I had a child or someone I need to take care of, I think I've put that in place so I can have that time available to me. But I think that can be hard up front, because I have seen some people who are like, oh, I'll just stay here till 8 p.m. because I have nothing to do tonight. And I really don't think that that's the answer.
Thank you. Krista.
Yeah, my answer is it definitely can be. It does vary by employer. It does vary by sometimes even by manager. And so if you're looking to start a new career, or if you're looking to switch companies, I would definitely say during your interview process, just make sure that you understand what paid time off benefits there are, what flexibility and schedules there are. And I am upfront with all of my team. I've got 2 kids. And so sometimes I need to do the pickups or the drop-offs. There's logistics. And so sometimes I work from home because I can't make my hours if I commute into work and still do the pickup and the drop off. Or sometimes right now we've got some aftercare problems. And so we've hired someone to do that logistics for us. But my salary does allow me to do that. And so for me, it makes sense. And be the, super great manager I am and still have my family taken care of. So yeah,
I love it.
yes.
Thank you so much. Now we're running out of time. I want to pick up a couple questions. So I've got 2 more questions for you, but let's just be real quick on them. I'm going to ask a blunt question and maybe 10 seconds each. I know this is a hard one, but what salary range? I mean, engineers make more than a lot of other jobs. So if you were just going to get a general engineering job, what would be the low end and high end for coming right out of college, let's say with a bachelor's or even a master's? Sarah, why don't you jump in since you're closer to coming out of college?
Yeah, I just did that a year ago. I mean, for me right now, I make I just got a raise this week. That was kind of exciting, but I make like 75,000, but it was cool because I've gotten the 2 raises this past year. But I heard people kind of low end, like upper 50s, 60s, up to, I had some friends who got job offers higher than that, depending on where you live. So I think I felt like I was kind of in the middle of the leaving college range.
Great. Krista.
My previous experience in oil field is that if you're willing to take a rotational job where you're working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, somewhere very remote, you're going to start closer to like 90s. But that does require a lot of flexibility and a lot of challenges on your part. And I would say that 70 to 75 in the Utah area is what our company is currently offering for new hires.
Excellent. Becca, anything you'd like to add on that one?
I've seen the same thing with a new hire average range being around like that 70 to 80,000 range. Just as Krista said, also, if you're willing to take those difficult off-shift weekends, remote type roles, there's typically a differential that's associated with it, and that can be often 10 to 20% additional salary.
Thank you so much. And then my last question, we'll do quick too. I want to get to a couple questions, but my last one is, I mean, if you have like 20 seconds each, why would you encourage young women who are listening in today to consider engineering as their major and a career? Krista, let's start with you on this one.
It's challenging, it's exciting, and there's always a need for engineers.
Love it. Becca.
We need you more than anything. We need women and their thought processes to help solve the world's problems.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Yeah, I think the woman's point of view is extremely important coming into these different issues we're facing. And also just like, if you think you have any kind of passion or desire for it, go for it. It is such a good job. The future is that we're always going to need engineers. There will continue to be more technology for forever. And I just would encourage you all to just try and go for it. I mean, the worst that happens is it doesn't work out and you study something else and you took all these cool math and science classes and met some potential engineers.
That is so great. My husband actually has an engineering undergrad and then got an engineering master's and an MBA. And so he doesn't do engineering all day, but his engineering background is so helpful for everything he's done throughout his whole career. Okay, I'm moving into some questions now from the audience today. The first one is, are there positions, and I would think the answer would be yes, but that are part-time? Well, you're all full-time, but are there part-time positions? And then another question, I'll give you 2 here, do some of the engineering positions still allow remote work, full-time or remote 2 or 3 days a week? Who would like to jump in on that one?
I can.
Okay, great.
Where I work, it's extremely flexible. Most of us choose to go into the office every day. But if we can work from home, we can. I know for myself, I'm doing a lot of like specification writing right now, test case writing right now, and there's no reason I can't do that from home. As far as part-time people, I do work at a pretty small site. We only have 60 people. We only have 1 part-time person. He does all of our drawings for all of our CAD drawings and all of that kind of stuff. And he's just not needed full-time. But other than that, I think everyone does typically work full time. I have heard of a few like software developers who will do part-time roles, kind of tag teamed with someone else. But typically, I think most people do work full time, at least with what I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I do know that I've done some speaking to some of the engineering associations in Utah, and chatted with a couple CEOs who like, we need women, they said, and we have job sharing and we have this and that. So it probably, Sarah, as you said, it might be different in different areas. Becca or Krista, do you want to comment on that before I shift over to another question?
Yes. So I have not seen as much part-time work as I've seen contract work, where there'll be a contract for a period of time. It could be weeks or months or for the duration of a project. So that's more of what I've seen in terms of that type of work. A lot of employers will allow for part-time. My current employer will allow people to go part-time, but we typically don't hire for it. But we let people do it on a case-by-case basis. I actually have a woman engineer who works for me now that just went part-time because she is in the last year of her degree program. And so she's going to go part-time to focus on her studies and finish her degree.
Great. Thank you so much. And Krista, I'm not sure if you want to take this question, but let me give it to you. So if there are young women who are still in high school, but they're really interested and intrigued with this, would you recommend any types of classes or even electives that could give them a little leg up on understanding those principles and just understanding the field? Krista?
In the era when I was in high school, we had a technical program and we had CAD classes that we could take. So in my high school, the answer was yes. So CAD classes or any kind of engineering classes. And if you don't have like engineering classes, there are some groups outside of like school that might be available. So I know like there's some Lego STEM building things. And basically if you look for any kind of STEM club, that's what I would lean into.
Yeah, and just for those that are listening in, if you go to our website at utwomen.org, the Utah Women in Leadership Project website, you'll be able to find actually a list of K through 12 girls camps and programs, and many of those are actually STEM. So we talked about classes in high school, but there are opportunities, for junior high and some of those extra things. So I'll have one other person, Sarah, Becca, maybe you can take this one on. So especially in college, are there benefits to joining like a club or an organization that's meant? Sarah, you're nodding. Both of you are nodding. Okay. Any quick comments and then we'll conclude.
I can say something about this one. So I was in the Society of Women Engineers. I was in the Biomedical Engineering Society, all the technical stuff, which is awesome. They bring in professionals from outside. You learn a lot about potential career paths. Totally recommend. But also, I played Ultimate Frisbee, and there were 4 other women on the team who were engineering students. And having some role models like that was so important because I was like, I see them do it. I can do it. They encouraged me. We encouraged each other. And I think just finding a group of people, and they weren't even necessarily the same type of engineering, but it's like we can share other things and then encourage each other through non-technical clubs, I think is really important too.
Great. And Becca, lastly, do you have a quick comment about that? And then I'll wrap it up for us.
Oh, I just wholeheartedly agree that, building a network, having people that you can ask questions to is very helpful. And that, just as Sarah said, that network does not necessarily have to be strictly the technical path.
Thank you so much. And thanks to my guests, Becca, Krista, and Sarah for being part of today's webinar, and also the Greater Salt Lake Society of Women Engineers for their support in this episode. And thanks again to the Utah Education Network for their partnership on this series. And finally, to all of you listening in, remember that you really do have so many career options. I encourage you to explore all these options and then also consider your individual interests and passions, your gifts, talents, and strengths as well. And these combined with a college or university education can help you prepare for an engaging and meaningful profession throughout your life. Thanks so much.